A lot of films are talk about artists, and usually the artwork is not transfixed to what the artist is doing in a lot of process. This movie does an excellent job of showing artist process as well as the configuration of subject matter, which is very rare in our films. I'm Nick from the St. Paul Filmcast.
And I'm Kyle Goethe from GoetheFilmReviews.com.
And today we're going to talk about one of the marker films from France that came out late in 2019 and missed the Oscars just a little bit, but I consider one of the best films of 2019.
Yeah, it really just it kind of came out, hit a fire with a lot of like critics and a lot of people who have been involved in that foreign language kind of film scene.
Yeah.
But then it also kind of just whimpered away. But I think everyone who did see it enjoyed it. It was very talked about. I think it was very talked about with Cannes, but lost out with Parasite kind of taking over the big scene. It was the big foreign language film of the year, and it's almost like you can't have too many of them. But Portrait of a Lady on Fire is what we're talking about today from Céline Sciamma. A beautiful conceit of a film that takes place between the artist and their subject, I guess, and how attention and viewing someone can really lead to a romantic entanglement.
Let's talk about the complete opposite, the feminine version of The Lighthouse. All right, we're back. And I mentioned Portrait of a Lady on Fire is a little bit like The Lighthouse, which came out in 2019 when two guys worked The Lighthouse. But here it's a complete opposite. You have color, you have simplicity of color, you have creativity, you have arts, you have an investigation of love, and it's not a horrific, it's not a horror, but it's a broken relationship about love and what you're forced to do. It's about force, actually.
Yeah.
About things you're supposed to do and you don't want to do.
And it's probably the Frenchiest French film I've ever seen, but
overly French.
But I think what I really liked about it was that the way in which Sciamma is able to view these characters and how they view each other. There's a definite focus on emotion, on I guess the details, the visuals over the actions.
Details. And here, the thing is, it's tricky. It looks simple. There's a lot of simple. Maybe like three colors are shown, the wallpaper and like dresses and three color tones, and that's tough to do. That is messy.
It's tough to make it memorable. Yeah. You know, it really kind of would get into that forgettableness. I'm going to make a strange comparison here, but earlier this year we talked about The Grudge 2020, which had a singular color plated throughout the whole film, and it took away from the film. It brought down the whole film. It looked disgusting. Whereas we get the film like Portrait of a Lady on Fire, there's not a lot of bright and shiny color on the interior scenes of the home, but what it is there, the colors are juxtaposed just nicely. And what's beautiful about it is you get a film that is about a portrait, about a painting, and every single shot in this film feels like it is a painting. It feels like it could hang on a wall.
If I can go back to the theme a little bit, let's talk about forest. Here, the lady is hired to do a job that she doesn't really want to. She's going on an undisclosed location. We don't even know if it's an island, a peninsula, or something like that along the shoreline. And she's hired to do a job of just paint the portrait for the person that's going to be married. The person wants to see what this lady looks like, and she has to do an authentic, detailed portrayal of what this woman's going to look like.
It's almost like like an emailed order receipt for something that's being shipped her way, you know.
And so the artist, played by Noémie Marlon, is doing a work where she's hesitant to do it because she doesn't want to really participate in this arranged marriage, but she wants to do a good job because her reputation's online as well. Yeah,
it's kind of that give and take where she knows that she's tricking this other character, Eloise,
right?
Played by Adele Hanel. She is basically tricking her into spending time with her in order to memorize the details of her face. What I love the conceit of the film. I love the way that the film opens with this idea that that Eloise does not want to get married, therefore she does not want the portrait because she does not want something that will be given as a gift, that her visual beauty is a gift to be given and traded. I love that she doesn't want that, and she rejects it, and that's why she won't pose for this picture. That's why I think it's so great about how this film opens up, because it's a really unique idea, one that I never would have thought of.
One of the nice tricks about the costume design is, if you know a little bit of art history, and at the time, women's portraits would be in green dresses, and that was always a symbol of fertility. And so the best looking green dress you can put on a dress presents like, I'm very fertile. And when she wears this green dress, it makes Adele look awkward.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's almost like it's not part of her, which is a slivet that's hard to notice.
Mm-hmm.
It is phenomenal filmmaking.
Yeah,
and especially costuming detail that even though she wears this green dress, it looks great. It doesn't really fit her.
Yeah. It's just it's not right for her.
Yeah,
but she's going to be forced to wear it.
Yeah,
you know, it's like the mask that people wear in public versus what they would like to be in private.
And that's why I say it's all about force. Even the maid is doing a job she doesn't like, but she's doing it as best as she could.
Mm-hmm.
The mother who doesn't really want to give her daughter away, but there's a lot of prosperity to doing it.
Yeah, there's a lot of good that can come to the family.
Yeah.
You know, and the dynamic there. Marianne I think Marianne's my favorite character in the film, just because I think the way Nomi Marlan really brings you into what she's dealing with. I understood everything she did. I emotionally connected with her and the struggle that she's dealing with, because once the film drags on enough, she's put into a position where if she finishes the painting, then the painting will be gone, and so will her connection with this person she's starting to grow for. Whereas if she doesn't finish it, she loses her stake as a very rare female painter in this day and age. She isn't allowed to do.
Well, she's only hired because they hired male painters, and it didn't work out so very well. So logical step, well, if the male painters will work, we'll just hire a female one.
Yeah, and so there's really nothing right that she can do about this. She's given this, I think, 5-day period where she gets to kind of spend more time with Eloise.
It's a massive struggle, almost like a lighthouse. The environment plays on even though her equipment goes over the board and she has to retrieve it. So there's a lot of the struggle to function in this environment, much like the movie The Lighthouse.
Actually, yeah. Well, what I think is cool, though, is that she's forced into this position where she has a running clock now to finish this portrait.
Yeah.
But she knows that by finishing it, everything will
go
come
away
to an end. Right. And then she also has the part of her that's not the painter in this part, the part of her that is just viewing, that's, falling in love, or at least a romantic entanglement. It's never lusty. It's only emotionally strong. And I think that is what's really kind of nice about her interplay with Eloise's character.
There's a wonderful shot where there's a table with a fireplace in the background, and the three women, and the camera doesn't move. It's stationary, and you see the three women, the maid and the two ladies, all three participating in what we consider the three feminine jobs of the world. One's cooking, one's sewing, and one is, I can't remember the other one, but they're all participating in the three, and it's like a representation of just the aspect of how feminist this movie is.
Wow, yeah, I didn't think about that, but that's very true. Yeah. Interesting. I think from the way the film is shot, Claire Mathon, I think is what we found.
And she's a massive film cinematographer.
Yeah, she's been doing a lot of great work, but doesn't really have a name, at least in America. Yeah. Gorgeously shot, and it takes its time. So much to maybe I would consider a fault in terms of as the film gets on, more because I really like the conceit of her keeping this painting from Eloise, like her not letting her know what she's doing and why she's there. That was my favorite part of the film. So when that comes to an end, I felt that the film did drag a little bit near the end, and I wanted to kind of get back to that the intrigue.
We talked about it on our previous movie, Can You Ever Forgive Me? There's a lot of good scenes of acting where you don't want to cut. There's a lot of beautiful photography that you just don't want to cut.
Yeah, and I can't think to myself where I would cut. With one exception, I didn't care as much for the subplot with the maid. More because I was so invested in Marianne and Eloise that just the subplot with the maid who's pregnant and wants to get out of this, it didn't really work, and it didn't add anything to the relationship for me. Yeah. I wanted to spend more time with that. Yeah. So that's kind of for me one of those things that I wish was just different, because I wanted to get back to that central relationship because it was so strong. Again, as we talked about with Can You Ever Forgive Me last week, it's about these two characters and it's about their relationship. This one is a bit more romanticized than that, but it's so strong that you just want to spend all your time in there.
And of course, with a great movie and a phenomenal movie, it has a great ending to it. It's one of the best endings I regard. It makes sense to the movie. A lot of people are not going to understand it or have struggled with it. It has a little bit of an open to interpretation, but I think it's a right ending for the movie. And we talk about the cinematography, and it is a visual artwork, but the performances are wonderful because there's a lot of material. It's simple, straightforward, and there's not a lot you can navigate. It's hard to do, right? Yeah. You don't have a lot of play.
There's a lot less play in terms of story and a lot more in terms
not
of
a lot of lines to say.
Yeah,
right. Yeah.
Where the characters speak a lot with their eyes. They speak a lot with the way that they conduct themselves just physically standing in a room.
Yeah.
Going back to the ending though, because I think it's comparative almost to having a few endings. It kind of feels like there's a few moments near the end where the film stops.
It does.
And you're like, is it over? And then you get another scene, and it could have been overdone, but I feel like each ending gives a kind of a closure to a different facet of
I'll tell you what,
story.
I know where a guy would end it.
Exactly, yeah.
And it would not be the ending that we get here.
Yeah, but I defended to death the Return of the King's 20 endings, and I will defend the 3 endings of Portrait of a Lady on Fire, because I do think that each of the endings does give a bit of closure that you didn't get. And whereas I think the last piece, the very last scene, is one that
sensational.
It's very much, if it wasn't there, I don't know if I would feel that the film doesn't end well, but it just adds an extra kick that really closes in on the last moment. Nick, should we give a spoiler alert here?
I don't think so.
Okay, all right.
But it's a very loose interpretation.
Yes, and I think
we've argued about the ending before we started recording.
Yeah, and it's definitely something I think if you watch it a second time, you might take something different away from it. What I really enjoy is how the gaze of between these two characters looking at each other, being in a room with each other. And I almost feel like the moral of the story is to really love someone, time is what the best thing you can give, because they do spend time together, and that kind of creates this connection that they feel when they're just going for their walk, and it's just this like almost this task that they have to complete, going for the walk.
They're forced to do something.
They're not in it at all. Yeah. But it's only when there's the idea that they're learning about each other. There's a great scene early on in the film where she says, "I can't get her to smile," and the maid says, "Have you tried being funny?" And I think that's a really like she's literally searching to make someone else happy. Yeah. I mean, it's for a task, but she's searching to make someone happy. Have you tried making them happy? Is a really great question.
It's a great line in the movie.
Yes, and it's kind of one of my favorite moments.
Slightly missed, yeah. But it's also, here it is an interesting component to it. It's a mystery. And it's not a murder mystery or anything, but here's these characters who have no idea about the other characters, and small gestures and hands of trying to figure out the other person.
Yeah, there's a sense that there's a built tension to the romance that I think is very rare.
When she's posing, can I move your hand or are you going to get upset? This delicate play of kind of posture, and then no, I thought you'd do it this way. So, yeah, and like I said, it's deceivingly simple. Yes. There's a lot more to it than projected on the movie.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's why on first viewing, it may not really pull people in the same way if you're not looking for those details, because there's a lot of detail in there. Yeah. Last thing I want to give is a big shout out to Valerio Galino, who I fell in love with in the movie Hot Shots, who plays the mother, the Countess. It's really great to have her kind of in her native speaking voice, doing something that's maybe a bit less.
Right, and she doesn't. She's very like in this movie. She's very limited, and she with a lot of small scenes, and she nails it.
And I really like that she plays an interesting, converse to Eloise's character, in that she also has her own portrait from when she went through this exact same thing. There's almost this Dorian Gray kind of a feeling the way the portrait is put up there, and I like that the Countess is recalling that this is what we go through. This is how it's supposed to be.
Procedures,
And I like that when we look at the Countess, though, there's also that level of her portrait smiles, but you can sense that her portrait is not happy. And I think that that's something really interesting that we get to play with the multiple paintings and portraits we get throughout the film.
I like that there's a loose sense of when they're intimate with each other. There's a loose sense, but the whole aspect, the other time of the movie is rigid, stiff, and play on your roles and stuff like that. So
absolutely
love that contrast.
So for me, definitely a recommend this week.
God, yes.
I really enjoyed the characters in the film. Well, I do agree the film was a little bit long, and I would have maybe chopped the subplot, but that's about all I could really do. I think overall it's a film that's worth visiting, and it's worth just breathing in. We don't get a lot of long, slow American movies.
No.
And I think this one lets you breathe in the environment.
It's a lot of it's a little bit. It's funny because it's all about a drab story, but there's a lot of refreshing scenes into it.
And real quick, it was shot in 8K because they wanted to capture as many colors as they possibly could, and I think that was very successful because especially with those outdoor sequences, the
bright.
sun, the way that the waves work on the beach is beautifully done. So
it's a trick because it's not a happy movie, but it's got some wonderful color to it.
Yeah, there's a beauty in what it's doing, even if it's not a happiness.
Absolutely right.
So you obviously recommend this one.
I recommend this is the best movie I've seen since Parasite, and I saw Parasite just like 6 months ago.
Yep, and I think there's a sadness to the fact that this film and the farewell to female-directed foreign language films got completely missed at the Oscars in the last year. I do think Nomi Merlan would have made a great Best Actress Academy Award nominee, because I do think the Best Actress, Lead Actress category last year was the one where I felt there could have been more spread.
Yeah.
It felt like it wasn't celebrating the really unique performances in the Best Lead Actress.
And this would, I'll put it right up there as one of the top 3 best cinematographer films of 2019. I would definitely put 1917, The Lighthouse, and this movie as the top 3.
I could see this one getting into that awards category too. So I think that's why, after having seen it now, I totally get the frustration people felt that it wasn't included there.
This movie will be required viewing from film students in 30 years from now.
I'm going to write that one down. So, awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for hearing our thoughts on Portrait of a Lady on Fire. Now we want to hear your thoughts on the film. Have you seen it yet? I know Criterion Collection just put out this excellent home video release for the film. Check it out if you get the chance, and give us your thoughts on the film. Comment below. That's what we're here for. Go ahead and drop a like as well, and subscribe if you want more of our content. We get new episodes every single week here on the YouTube channel. So, one other thing you can do, support those independent content creators, just like us, by checking out our Patreon page, patreon.com/KyleNickOnFilm.
Join
a number
the
of different tiers, and you can start as low as $1 a month. You won't even miss that. You're not out buying coffee. We're supposed to be inside. So thank you guys for joining us. My name is Kyle Goethe. You can find my film reviews on GoatFilmReviews.com.
And I'm Nick from the St. Paul Filmcast, when I interview independent local filmmakers from the Twin Cities, Minneapolis, Minnesota area.
All right. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Let's pose real quick so they can take a portrait of us.
Was she doing this?
I think.
Yeah.
Thank you.